Hello, I am Hannah March, Chief Growth Officer of Fold7, with my esteemed guest, Steve Garside, Chief Growth Officer of full-service creative agency TMW, who were recently acquired by Accenture Song. Welcome to the first episode of How Not to Fuck It Up, the definitive guide to new business through other people's mistakes.
An honour to be the very first guest. The irony is not lost on me that you've chosen me for such a podcast, but thank you very much.
Well, chosen you because of your reputation, your good reputation, I might add, not your reputation for making mistakes.
Well, let's see where we are at the end.
Yeah. Because this is the first episode, it's probably worth just setting the scene a little bit on why this podcast exists. And we've talked a bit about this, Steve, before, but I am someone who came into the industry quite late from a radically different career in music. And coupled with that, all of the businesses that I've worked at in this industry have been very different types of businesses because of the fact that I came into the industry late and also have worked in so many different types of businesses. I've had to learn really, really fast. And what happens when you're having to learn really fast with everything that you do is you make a lot of mistakes. And I've actually made some quite big ones. But I've taken with me the sense that actually those mistakes are what allowed me to accelerate in a way that I definitely would never have done otherwise. And there's a lot of content out there that talks about how to do it well, how to do new business well, how to do growth well, and not so much that talks about the mistakes that people make. And other people can learn from our mistakes, your mistakes, Steve, and my mistakes. So I hope that this podcast can be that piece of content that helps people to understand common mistakes that have been made as well as others, and helps them to be better in their role and in their career. So yes, welcome and thank you for being number one.
Great. And I think we'll see where we get to, but I'm super excited to talk about it. In the preparation for this, digging up those old mistakes of the past, which some I probably have buried quite deep somewhere in my brain.
And Steve's promised to be extremely honest. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories that you've got up your sleeve.
There's some good ones, hopefully.
Just a quick intro to you would be good for all of our listeners to understand. And you have a very long list of achievements, so it might take me a little bit to read some of this out.
Don't feel like you need to read them off.
No, I want to, because it's amazing. I want to. So you were DMA Young Spark in 2009, Campaign Face to Watch in 2009, led your team to 3 shortlistings at Campaign New Biz Team of the Years, BD 100 Hall of Famer with 7 listings and runner-up in 2024, and then currently on a 7-year streak of scooping at least a bronze in Campaign Agency of the Years, including a winner in 2021. And that's phenomenal. And I know that you played a really big role in the transformation of TMW from being really specialist to being an integrated offering, and that's probably what's been a large part in all of these successes that I'm reading about.
Yeah, I think, despite clearly having a good PR person, I think that's probably the single biggest thing that I think I'm happy with, moving away from helping the agency move away from the specialist reputation that it's had as a customer engagement agency into a more integrated one.
And culminated in the acquisition by Accenture Song.
Yeah, so 13 months ago.
I just thought we should talk a little bit about your current remit at TMW. So tell me about that.
I've been at TMW for just under 4 years, and my remit is very, very simple. It's grow TMW. So grow it from a financial point of view. So the very nub of any new business person, always sits in those cold, hard financial figures. And we do that through just ensuring that we're pitching for the right types of clients where we're going to kind of grow from a profitability point of view, grow it from a client type point of view, and then third, grow it from a reputation point of view. You and I spoke just before we started rolling on your belief on the importance of agency reputation, and that's something I fundamentally couldn't agree more with. So reputation and PR and marketing of the agency is integral to the growth of the agency too.
And now just to rewind a little bit, because I'm always interested in how people have ended up where they are. And I don't mean career-wise, like what jobs have you been doing, but actually who you were when you were young, what you liked to do, whether you ever thought that you had the skill sets that might lead you to some sort of career that was similar. So yeah, tell me a bit about your life.
Sure. So it was looking at this question which made me realise how I ended up in new business, actually. I hadn't actually thought it through to that length beforehand. But throughout primary school, I was sort of in the sort of like upper third from an academic point of view, and my family really latched onto that. And they used that as like a catalyst of kind of family pride, because they never really had that. I was living in a council house. No one in my family had ever been to university. So they seen that I was doing kind of quite well from an academic point of view, and they really like heralded that, and that would be like the topic of conversation when you'd go around to visit your nan or something like that. I was also kind of quite shy, so I used this kind of family fame a little bit to just give myself the kind of confidence and like, oh, I'm doing, things doing quite well. I went to secondary school, and I suddenly gone from like, being like, one of the smartest kids in the class to being really middle of the road. And it took me a couple of years to kind of work out, oh, wow, the world is bigger than just 25 kids in a school in Putney. And then, by the time you're 14, 15, 16, you're finding your own voice, you're finding different interests. And then I got into drama for GCSE. Really enjoyed that, just as a kind of confidence booster.
And were you good at it?
No, no, absolutely not good. Well, I was okay. I was confident.
But it's interesting because with theatre, you learn how to take people on a journey and how to tell stories, and how to move people emotionally, and that's so important with your business.
And that moved into when I went to uni, I studied drama at university. And then I became, exactly like you said, like a little bit more considerate of the stories that I'm telling and whatnot. And then I got to the end of uni, and I had to make this decision. Wrote loads of letters, and then eventually ended up with work experience at an agency called EHS Bran. They ended up on the new business table because they forgot I was coming for work experience, and the person as the new business exec had left the week before, and went
serendipitous.
Incredibly serendipitous. Didn't really understand what was happening for months, maybe a year. I just sort of turned up to meetings and had a lot of energy and just kind of listened, and didn't have anything about office etiquette. So I didn't know that you could just waltz into the shared creative director's office and ask for something. But that, I think that became it was a little bit annoying, but also a little bit endearing too.
I think I had exactly the same thing, but at a much older age, so I'm not sure it was as forgivable, because I'd never worked in the industry. So, many office bloopers of like what you're not supposed to do. Talk to me a little bit about that shyness, because I would say that there's probably a perception that most new business, people who are successful in new business are extroverts and are very highly confident. I don't think that's necessarily true, that you have to be an extrovert to be great at new business. No. But I'm interested that you are perhaps a more natural introvert, but have grown in confidence and you've developed your own style. Do you think that was driven by the doing theatre and building your confidence that way?
Absolutely. It's quite a common thing now, isn't it, to hear people that you perceive as extroverts saying, "Oh, actually, I'm an introvert." But I really sympathise with that, because I feel like that's a journey that I've been on, and the arts and theatre and the storytelling techniques and pushing yourself in, even like training to this day, the general feeling of being uncomfortable and learning the theory that you only really grow through your uncomfortable experiences. I'm a big believer in just the right type of anxiety.
Well, I agree. And it goes back to what I was saying about my journey and always being pushed, like always doing something I don't quite know how to do yet. Yeah. Like it's the same theory. It's, do something that you feel is challenging and you'll grow.
Yeah, and I love that theory, because there's just so many evidence points, and we can all relate to those moments in our lives where we feel uncomfortable. I worked with a lady called Caroline Sparks, who's still in the new business game. I think she's at a big experiential agency now. She once taught me around the theory that a new business person has to be part strategist, part creative, part account handler. And it took me a few years to kind of work out, oh yeah, she's absolutely right. And I think about that on a really regular basis, actually. Yeah,
it's a very multi-hyphenate role. So again, for people who like variation And not just variation in the role that you're doing, but also variation in, like, because you're learning about different clients all the time and different challenges. And it's probably the most varied role in an agency business.
Yeah, I was asked by one of our managing partners the other day after a creds meeting. She asked me, she said, how do you kind of have so much going on all the time across the various opportunities? And I said, well, we get involved at a relative shallow level, a lot of the time, because we have to, because brain capacity, we have to kind of dip in and out of things very, very quickly. And when we're assembling teams, they're the ones who really kind of pull up their sleeves and get really deep into those really knotty problems. But our viewpoint can be really helpful at certain stages when they're so in the weeds.
Yeah, it's the objective
that big
view.
Macro thing, absolutely.
Yeah, new business is a career choice that does fill many with dread.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that you do growth or new business, lots of people's literal responses, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that." So why do you love it?
So it's a great question, because I remember one time I had just got back from a holiday the day of an RFI submission on a portal. This is about 15 years ago. And there was a senior account manager or account director who was helping with the submission, and we had until, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, we had until 5 o'clock so I sort of came in, fresh back from holiday, and we sat down. It was like, well, just said, how's it all going? And she had spent her career in account handling. She said to me, I don't know how you do this all the time. And then she pointed, she said, there is a clock, a countdown timer on this screen that is telling me that I have got 7.5 hours to get this in. How do you cope with this? And I said, haven't really thought about it. That's just sort of the thing that gets me out of bed and kind of gives me that motivation. And as I said, it's that gentle anxiety and that sort of motivates me, and I think that does help drive people. One of the things I like about new business is that it's always going. You're always in motion. Even when you finish a pitch, it's right on to the next one. What's next? And that pitch is very likely to be in a different sector with different clients and different challenges and different dynamics. So that constant freshness is there. I think also, when you're very early in your career, in your first 5 years of your career, and I'm seeing this with someone in my team at the moment who is probably, I think, 18 months, 2 years into her career, and I remember going through the exact same things, is that your ability to be seen by senior leaders within the business is every day. This is just a great chance for you to shine, that you may take you a little bit longer in different aspects of an agency. So I think that's a real appeal for people, a chance to show off quickly in a nutshell.
That's definitely true, and I would encourage all newbies into the industry to consider new business and growth for that reason, because I do think it's a career accelerator, and you do get access to the senior level teams in a way that you wouldn't do in other departments.
You really don't. And I think that the final thing is probably that instant feedback. So, yes, you've won, you're brilliant, or no, you haven't, this is why. That's quite addictive. So it's a constant feedback loop. So if you are interested in improving or growing, then there's nothing better than, the result of an RFI, a chemistry, or a pitch response to kind of help give you that information. And I don't think there's too many industries that necessarily have that like we do.
It's true, when you're doing a client meeting outside of the new business context, you don't, you will get feedback on the work, but you don't necessarily get feedback on everything in the way that you do with the pitch. So they'll talk about team chemistry, they'll talk about the work, but they'll also talk about other things like their impression of your understanding of the brand, all those different things that go into them choosing you or believing that you're the right partner for them. And that is totally different from other interactions with clients. On to the meaty topic.
Sure.
The broad topic of making mistakes and failing. We'll start with, what do you think are the most common mistakes that are made in growth roles?
Sure. So there are two that I've seen happen, and I've been a part of, and I've been guilty of. One is being under the pressure of either the founders of the business or the super senior leadership members of the business, and to not bring them on the new business journey with you, and to be under the pressure to go after everything. So I've been a part of agencies. This usually happens at kind of smaller agencies where you're still sort of finding your feet, and you don't really... The agency's proposition at the time was, well, whatever we win, we are. So we were like 15 people at this agency. It's just going after too much, or going after everything because of the financial pressures, when I think if we would have been a little bit more patient, the right opportunities would have come along, and we would have converted bigger, more profitable accounts rather than chasing after things, and in some cases even losing money on pieces of work.
And of course there's the end of financial year pressure as well that people succumb to when it's coming up, and you feel like you need to just put a few more things on the bottom line. Yeah. So, and again, we've something that I think we've all been guilty of. We get those pressures within that last quarter, sometimes in that second half of the year, because of how things kind of convert and how they land, that you can very quickly lose sight of what's super important and how you're going to grow the agency beyond the financial year and really what you stand for. And we've burnt through, in the past, I've seen the agencies that I've been at kind of burn through talent because we've been chasing the wrong stuff, which has got a very long kind of procurement timeline. And it's just sort of like, just feel like chasing stuff into the abyss. And how do you balance that then with the fact that, in our society and the way that businesses run, we're judged quarterly on the numbers, and then also there's a target that you have to hit at the end of the year. So how do you balance maybe pressures that aren't even coming from you, but from above, from the CEO or the finance department, to try and get as close as possible to those numbers, even if in the long term that's not going to help the business?
That's a great question. That's a journey that I've been really on very recently, actually, because we have been chasing the numbers from a financial point of view quarterly, and then for the big end of year push. We now transition the business into a more grown up overall value of the new business win, as opposed to the value just for that end of the year, which was a real massive pet peeve of mine. So we used to, up until very recently, judge wins on their value of
realised in year,
and then next year that's just a client, and that was a real frustration of mine. But we're now moving into recognising new business wins from a total value, a total contract value. So if it's 3 years, it's 3 times that thing. And that has been a bit of a journey. It's been like a 3 or 4 year journey for us to kind of shift into that mindset.
And how did you tackle it? Just interested, because this is something that a lot of people in growth struggle with, and are actively having those conversations. So how did you do that? How did you take the right people on that journey?
Lobbying. Yeah, so unfortunately there was no kind of quick fix, but it was lots and lots of lobbying, referencing it weekly, referencing it weekly at the commercial meetings, talking around, when you do win a big piece of business in January and your financial year starts in April, and then the account doesn't really get set up to the 1st of March, and then going, this is a £3 million piece of business. We're only measuring 1/12 of that as a new business win. So having it took a few years. So it's having a few of those in the bank and just kind of going, look, this is the thing. The approach. So it's been taking finance on a bit of a journey. We've been in a relative strong position within TMW, within Unlimited, where even if new business has got a bit of a long tail, or we are winning stuff in January, there has been stuff to kind of fill the holes that may be in February and March. But there's also the grown-upness to kind of go, oh, actually, you know, the contracts, if you look at the top 10 clients from the last 3 years, a lot of those have been new business wins in the last 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, there's not a quick fix, unfortunately, but there is just a little bit of lobbying supported by
historical data.
Historical data.
What is your take on making and handling mistakes, both small and large, and what is your ethos when it comes to failing?
So I am super relaxed when my team make mistakes, and I'm not just saying that just to kind of put on the brave face. Generally super relaxed, because the biggest kick I get, genuinely the biggest kick I get out of work is winning, obviously, but seeing my team grow. You know, I feel like, having been doing new business for nearly 20 years, it's a long time. You know, the biggest kick I get is just seeing my team learn and grow and do different things. And for every, even if it's like a reasonably big mistake, then the stuff that they've built in the bank with me over the last few years will always kind of, you know, gloss over that or give me the opportunity to be like, that's fine. So we sort of have that mentality. I don't get into the weeds of the fail fast methodology too much, partly because we don't really have time to sit down and kind of like theorise, right, this is why we've made the mistake, or let's try something different like that. But we do have this thing where we do try and only make the same mistake once. So we don't necessarily analyse our mistakes in any great detail. I think there's just a recognition and a move on, rather than let's kind of write this down and remember. I'm very vocal with my mistakes. I think
that's really important as a leader to allow people to see and understand that actually mistakes continue to be made no matter what level you're at.
Absolutely. So, and I love that thought. So just being vocal, being transparent, being human, you know, sometimes maybe even kind of too much so, but just being kind of human and just kind of going, well, that was probably my fault, or something like that. So I think that tries to create an environment where people aren't trying to hide things.
I agree. I think if they see you, so I try and do the same thing. And I think if you are quick to put your hand up and say that you've done something that didn't work out or made a mistake in some way, then others do that then too, which creates an environment of learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say to my team, the minute you feel like you're not learning anything, then kind of let me know, because we can find you something to learn.
How would you handle a mistake now if you made a big mistake with, like, let's say, for example, something that you had to go and speak to your CEO about, or something that was relatively significant? How would you personally handle it?
So I'd dwell on it first. So I would I'd dwell on it, and amongst that dwelling, I would soon work out that I probably don't have much more time to dwell on it, and I better just come clean quickly. So that, I can kind of picture myself doing that. But then I'll try and work out why. Why has that mistake been made? And that's not necessarily trying to find excuses. It sounds a bit like it. But yeah, that would be the kind of work out why and try and work out a bit of a path. If I don't know the answer, if I don't know the path out, then I will seek the advice of my CEO and kind of say, look, this has happened, I've done this.
So where possible, you're going in with, this is why it happened and this is what I'm going to do about it.
Where possible. But I won't stress too much about perhaps not knowing the answer, because, or of how to fix it. I might suggest an answer, but equally I'll be all kind of like counsel of, what do you think? So my solution might come with a question attached to it, rather than this is definitely the right thing.
You talked about failing fast a little there. And it is broadly recognised that experimentation and innovation are primary drivers of success. So with that, obviously, does come a bit more failure and acceptance of that as part of the process. How much do you or have you experimented with new approaches, techniques, technology? And also as part of that question, what's the biggest bet that you made that was something new you were trying that didn't pay off?
So I would say in the last decade plus, the importance of proprietary agency research, content to open new business conversations has exploded, right? Give clients, prospective clients, something of value. And I remember the first time I really read that and kind of delved into it and seen some examples, I got very excited, just like, this is great. Yeah, I love this. This is good. We can create something. And so we did it. I was at a small agency, 15 or so people. We held our big research event, spent, I don't know, £15,000 getting all this proprietary research. I think we worked with YouGov a little bit too. Pulse of the Nation, I think we kind of called it. And everything looked beautiful, but we hadn't quite worked out how to activate it and how to really get clients engaged and motivated around it. And the biggest mistake we made there was not researching the research. So not researching the target audience and what's doing the thing. We just sort of followed our nose a little bit. It was 2013, so just after the Olympics.
Do you mean you were following a topic that was quite zeitgeisty at the time, but without understanding what our consumers, what clients would be interested in when it came to that topic? Is that?
Yeah, exactly that. So we found them. We went down the sort of like mood of the nation route, and we kind of went down this path, and we created all this beautiful research, and spent a small fortune on doing it. But when we tried to engage with clients, they were like, "Well, why is that relevant?" And we'd really struggled to find the link, and learned a lot on that one, just because it's like, yeah, well, let's just ask our audience of what is keeping them up at night.
And by the way, I would tell listeners that you can do this with your current clients. If you're planning on doing something for prospects, use your current clients to bounce ideas off and to talk to about what they would find interesting or not interesting. It's a very good way of testing your potential new business initiative. I
love it. I need to write that down, actually. That's great. Sometimes the best advice is the most obvious, right? I love it. And but so that's the sort of like macro mistake that we made on this thing, but there was a practical one too, because we sent out so we did all this research, made these beautiful frames, put this research in some beautiful frames for clients to, of course, put in their offices. Of course, they're not going to put that stuff in their offices, but we put it in the frames, got a list of prospects, and we sent these frames out. However, only 49 of the frames were perspex. One of them was glass because we ran out. So I received And
you posted it?
Yeah. Yeah, posted it. And it ended back up on my desk within a week with a rather angry note from a famous British homeware retailer saying, please do not send broken glass in the post ever again.
Ouch. Oh, dear.
Yeah, ouch. So, yeah, that's something you don't make again.
No. Okay, I would like to really start to talk about the nuts and bolts of new business a little bit.
Yeah.
So through the lens of things that you think really don't work or are the biggest howlers that we would need to avoid. So picking up on so for people who are, say, new business directors or heads of new business or heads of growth who are starting to need to take charge of some of these areas, we'll start with team setup. So there are certainly many different ways that you can shape a team when it comes to growth. What have you found does not work?
Oh, great question. This is, for me, and how I like to have teams set up, but what I find that doesn't work, when you have an agency or an agency offering that has multiple offerings, I've found it very challenging, personally, to have individuals within a team of, say, 4 or 5 that just have a focus on growing one certain area. I have seen it work with very senior new business leaders, but it's not something that I've had work for me. I think it creates a environment where you have those individuals reporting into that the senior leaders of that agency capability as much as they're reporting to you, and that leads to sort of broken down communications, less of a one team one dream type mentality, and creates a little bit of friction along the way whilst people are trying to monitor their leads and what they're doing. So it's all sort of agency size dependent, but what we've done within TMW, we've sort of centralised it, and we have many capabilities, but we've decided that we're only going to pitch for maybe 3 or 4 of those capabilities and grow the other capabilities in different ways.
Like organically through current clients, etc.
Exactly. So, we may, in B2B, for example, look at some of our B2C clients and say, right, how can we help grow the B2B arm of that?
And what about the shared role of marketing a new business, the shared role of reputation and new business? Because often there are teams where everyone does everything. Does that work? Or teams where people have, like someone does events, someone does new business, someone does marketing and online?
Yeah, depends on your budget. I personally love doing both, and I encourage anyone starting out within new business to try and be a hybrid for as long as they can. I've been in roles where my role is just new business. I tend to lean more into that new business, but I like to create an environment where we are filling in RFIs, managing chemistry meetings, helping with pitches 1 minute, but also we've got an event on Tuesday morning and we're going to invite people in. That's not to say we don't have a PR, we have a PR specialist.
Yes.
So I quite think PR is more nuanced. But you can fill that gap in different ways. So something that we did in our team, I took a massive inspiration out of hearing what We Are Social used to do many years ago, where they had a team of just 3 or 4 writers just churning out content for them and their agency. So we moved my marketing manager into a kind of content creator type role, where he'd be responsible for the kind of thought leadership. But he's got a little bit of a new business background too. So
that's helpful.
Very helpful. So yeah, big believer in hybrids. But it's a bit like a graphic equalizer. You kind of dial things up and down, kind of as and when you need.
Yeah. When you're working in growth, everything is important. There's so much to do. So how do you prioritise? Like, how do you work out what it is you should be doing now versus later in the week versus never?
Great question. I think, and this is probably with how my background or how my preference tends to land, but for me, I think new business always has to come first because that has the natural deadlines of creds meetings or calls or hurdles that we need to jump. And it very much is, the future of the agency is generally dependent on it. By having a little bit of, in your team, by having a little bit of flex, again, agency size dependent, having a little bit of flex of, okay, this person generally does new business, this person generally does the marketing or the press releases or things like that. Having that flex does enable you to dial people up and down. So, for example, if I'm out the country or something like that, and our other new business people are on pitches, then there's stuff where I know that the people in my team responsible for marketing PR, they can pick up. So it's just that sort of hybrid nature, which does enable you to dial things up and down.
Interesting. So hybrid, but with a slight, like some people with a slight leaning towards certain areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think starting off and always being hybrid myself, but having a preference, and gives you the benefit and the foundations to be able to know where to point people at the right time to.
I'd really like to talk about some specific mistakes that
Yeah.
you've made, Steve, and then what you learned from them. So perhaps it's the biggest mistake you feel you've made, or failures that you've overcome, or just some things that have really stuck in your mind because they have grown you in some way.
Sure. So I think the biggest mistake I think about probably on a weekly basis, kind of as and when a pitch brief lands or a chemistry brief lands, because this is just the thing not to do in terms of it wasn't well thought out. We were pitching for Ella's Kitchen. Can I say the brand? I can say brands.
You can see the brands, yeah.
The brand. I was pitching for Ella's Kitchen. And the agency I was at, Kit Kat Nor. We shared the Saatchi building. And we were on the first and the sixth floor of the Charlotte Street, old Charlotte Street Saatchi building. And it was a very old building for anyone who's been in it or around it. It's not there anymore. And we were desperate to show the clients that we were understanding mums and we were also understanding children. And one of the ideas, I can't remember if it's mine. I think maybe it was. If it was, it's been buried.
Admit it.
Someone, yeah.
Admit
One
it.
of the ideas, probably was mine, was that we were going to get the clients to see the world through the children's eyes. And to do that, how do you do that? You make them sit on the floor, right? So we're in a very small room on the first floor of the Charlotte Street building, and we've asked them to sit on the floor, cross-legged, whilst we present to them for the best part of an hour. The very first mistake that we made was not explain why. So it's taken about 15 minutes into the meeting to be like, oh yeah, the reason why you sat on the floor is because of this. So they're clearly a bit irked. Okay, right. I think they gave us the benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt soon left any of their minds when we spotted mice running along the floor, as did the client. And the meeting ended pretty quickly after that. Now, that was not thought through. So firstly, it was a rush, and we didn't explain why this amazing way to break the ice has just created more tension and more non-melted ice than it could have done. And then the second of all, we didn't think around the state of the building, the age of the building, where we were in Fitzrovia.
The details, right.
The details.
It's not just about what you're presenting, it's every tiny detail.
Exactly that. And I don't even think that was that was quite a big detail that we just skirted over. We knew that the place had mice. We just got carried away thinking that this was this incredible idea that we were going to,
Did you sense check the idea with anyone else?
No. I think it was a pitch team thing. Yeah, let's just do it.
That's probably another learning, right? You've got good ideas, sense check them with someone outside of your team.
Absolutely. So if I don't remember having the idea, and it may well have been, I can definitely take responsibility for letting it happen, because yes, that absolutely shouldn't have done it like that.
Are there any mistakes that you made earlier in your career that had a really positive impact that you just think, God, if I hadn't have made that mistake, then I wouldn't be as good as I am now?
Yes, it's a really simple one, and it adds just a layer. The learning was professionalism to the right degree, right? And by that, I'm not saying like, we should all wear suits and kind of turn up on time and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to new business, this was a critical one. It was a tourism island, first stage RFI, creds, as a public tender. We sent, do you remember hard copies of creds? Do you remember those days?
I do remember
you used to
those
receive
days.
a lot of them.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
And all of the magical creative ways that people would send them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm sure one of the first conversations we probably ever had was me asking for more time, probably. And more time is not given in the public sector because I got these creds over to Tourism Ireland. They arrived 15 minutes after the deadline, and they were back on my desk within 20 minutes. So it was 5:45, and I had the copy of my creds and with a little note saying, "I'm sorry, you're late." And from that day forward, we make sure that we get our creds on time.
Always hit the deadline.
Always hit the deadline, and just professionalism at the right moments. It's just a critical learning.
Across the stages of a pitch, even at the very beginning, every small detail counts because they are subconsciously building their view of you from every tiny interaction.
Yeah, and you are building your agency brand and your personal brand with them through those interactions.
What do you think is the one mistake that everyone should make?
I think that the mistake people should make is really around making the basic mistakes first. So like that Tourism Ireland example, which has just stuck with me, and it's such a basic example, but you make it and you make it once, or you try and make it once, and you've always got that. It drives you to be like, okay, there's no kind of bullshitting here. This is proper. And you make those basic mistakes quite early on, within the first few years of your career. I think that kind of sets you up in good stead because they're things that stay with you.
So actually, I think the tip here is early on in your career, make as many mistakes as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the first time. And then never make them again.
Make as many mistakes as possible without getting fired. And if you do get fired, you'll find something else and you'll be a better person.
Exactly. Mine was, by the way, oversleeping after a night out, and then I never went on a night out before a big pitch. Oversleeping and not bringing, this was when I was at Oyster Catchers, and not bringing all of the pitch documents to the biggest pitch, which was a Camelot pitch.
Oh, wow.
So Angus just not having them. And I was supposed to be there and all the clients were there. Yes, that was interesting.
But you only make it once.
Yeah, I only made that once. So I want to ask one more question before we do the closing question about influence and who has been the biggest influence? Who's taught you the most in your career so far?
So my mind always goes to two people when I think about influences, and the people that I think about throughout the working week. Firstly, it's Tracy Barber. Havas Tracy Barber.
Industry legend.
Industry legend, but also I think Tracy's impacts and sort of status and her ability to elevate what new business can bring to an agency is like no one else. So I always think about her when it comes to the role of new business within an agency. And another boss of mine, I was lucky enough to report into her for 4 years, is Nikki Bullard. So Nikki Bullard, creative legend. She's always also chairwoman of MRM when I worked there for 4 years under her. And with Nikki, she just she reminds the agency that the agencies and pitching, that we're the fun part of clients' jobs. In some cases, we may be 5%, maybe 10%, maybe 20%. But by and large, we're the good bits of their job. We're away from the pricing and the stock distribution and all that sort of stuff. And they come to us for the magic. And that's really, really inspiring. And we lent into that a lot on pitches with her.
There's a saying that I love, which is that coming to see your agency should be like double art on a Friday. And it should.
I love it.
Always.
I love it. And then, that's, you saying that literally puts the hairs on my arm, because that's something that Nikki used to use a lot. Double art on a Friday afternoon.
I love that they're both women, by the way, so thank you for that. So finally, I just want to ask a closing question, which is, what is one idea that experts in the new business field say a lot, or that you hear a lot in new business and growth, that you actually disagree with?
You hear this a lot. usually from intermediaries, sometimes on LinkedIn posts and whatnot, around pitches being won at chemistry. They can certainly be lost at chemistry because they just don't invite you through to pitch. So it's half true if you look at it like that. But I've seen enough pitches, been in enough pitches. I'm sure. I mean, you've seen on the intermediary side too. To be like, even if you're a third or fourth on the chemistry, and you can sometimes get a feel for where you are, there's time to turn it around.
I definitely don't think you win it at chemistry. I agree. And then at tissue stage, I still think that there's everything to play for.
It goes back to your thing from earlier. Every interaction, every ability to influence cannot be underestimated. The feedback that we've had in chemistries, sometimes it can literally be a personality fit, which is what they're designed to do. A little tip off, I'd sub that person in, or
why casting is so important.
Why casting is so important, and a big believer in, just because someone's casting poorly on this one, they might be right for the next one. And if you're seen as an agency to sit and respond and then smash it out of the park at that pitch stage, then I think that's only going to benefit you from maybe the agency who had their nose in front at the chemistry.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much for being guest number 1 on How Not to Fuck It Up.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been loads of fun. I'm looking forward to hearing it back, but really can't wait to hear all the other guests on what's going to be a really great podcast.
Thank you for listening. If you are interested in hearing more about senior people in the industry's previous mistakes, so you can avoid making them yourself, keep your eyes and ears out for fresh episodes landing monthly.